Thank you. Media is a tough business. And as far as we know, Bay Nature, a nonprofit, is the only magazine in the US dedicated to environmental journalism and the natural world. And the reason we exist is your commitment to nature conservation and making nature accessible to all. So now for a few more welcomes and thank yous. We have some heroes here from previous years on live stream and in the theater, and I was wondering if those heroes from previous years could stand up. I'm getting weepy already and I'm just starting. And I'd like us to make a special call out to all our individual and organizational sponsors, more than 30. And just list out loud our lead sponsors, Nancy and Bart Westcott, Jorgen Hildebrandt, Barbara Bessey, and our organizational lead sponsors, East Bay Regional Park District, Federated Indians of Graton Rancheria, Google, Midpeninsula Regional Open Space District, Save the Redwoods League, and Union Bank. So very appreciative of the support that we receive from all our sponsors. And I'd like to thank our board. They support Bay Nature in so many ways, and they're always, for me, a joy to work with. How lucky I am. And you'll be meeting two of our board members later in the program, Nan Ho and Rebecca Johnson. As we start our program, I'd like to take a moment to honor the Bay Area's many diverse Indigenous people who have lived here in our beautiful Bay Area for thousands of years and continue to live here and thrive. We respect your Indigenous sovereignty and thank you for your stewardship of our natural world and the example you show us. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Kurt Riffle. He has had the good fortune of getting to know Nonette Hanko and experience firsthand her remarkable legacy. Kurt has been on the Mid-Pen board since 2006, but he first experienced the Mid-Pen preserves in the mid-1970s and visits them frequently now as a hiker, trail runner, equestrian, dog hiker, and mountain biker. So that's pretty awesome. He's going to be sharing some stories about Nonette's remarkable life and accomplishments. And then Nonette, who recently celebrated her 90th birthday, will come up and receive her award. Thank you, Kurt.
Thanks, Regina. Good afternoon, everyone. So good to see everybody, even the masks. So as Regina said, I'm Kurt Riffle. I'm on the board of the Mid-Peninsula Open Space District. In fact, several of our board members are sitting right here and some of our staff. And prior to presenting the Bay Nature's 2022 Conservation Action Hero Award, I'd just like to share a few thoughts about Nonette Hanko. I had the distinct privilege to serve with Nonette on the board from 2008 until her retirement in 2018. She and I sat next to each other on the dais for those 12 years. And we got together for breakfast and lunch every once in a while just to kind of compare notes and catch up. And Nonette would always give me some coaching about how I can do my job a little better as a board member, which I always loved. And so I considered Nonette a good friend in addition to a colleague on the board. But quite frankly, although I would consider her a good friend, I would say that she's also a hero of mine. And I just wanted to share with you some thoughts as to why I think that she's all of our heroes. All of ours is a hero. In 1978, cultural anthropologist Margaret Mead said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, that's the only thing that ever has." Ms. Mead undoubtedly had Nonette in mind when she had this notable observation. Nonette had no doubt that this small group of people that she had gathered in her living room to enjoy her delicious homemade coffee cake, right, Nonette? would conceive an organization that in its 50 years has protected 65,000 acres right in the middle of one of the world's 36 biodiversity hotspots, and now is being visited by well over 1 million people a year. So thanks to that original idea, that has been some of the results. And the question that I always say is, so why did Nonette do this? Well, Nonette grew up on the peninsula, enjoying the surrounding open spaces. She experienced the rapid growth, as a parent, the rapid development that was happening in the 60s, and she grew concerned. She wanted to make sure that her children and their other children had the same opportunity to experience these open spaces full of nature that she had. So Nonette thought that something should be done to prevent all of our precious open space from being lost. Jay Thorwaldson, then the assistant editor of the Palo Alto Times, dared her to be that somebody. "Quit complaining and do something about it," Jay said in an editorial. Little did Jay know the chord he struck with Nonette. You see, Nonette also happens to be a very accomplished pianist. Just like the piano's velvet-covered hammers that can produce beautiful music, most developers and politicians who dealt with Nonette gained a new respect for a style that can be compared to a velvet-covered hammer. Unfailingly gracious, warm, cheerful, but strong as steel and a forceful resolve to get things done. As a result, and because of this graciousness and resolve, over millions of children have had the opportunity to experience open space and nature. And thanks to her, tens of millions more will have the opportunity in the future. Unlike many other conservationists of her time, Nonette's equal love of people and the natural world helped her make an important connection. It wasn't about good for nature versus good for people. She made the early discovery that it must be both. Good for nature and good for people are necessary, each necessary for both to be healthy and resilient. Nonette happens to be a very strategic thinker. She knew that owning the land removed any doubt that it would be properly protected and cared for. In Midpen's first 35 years, it was all about buying land, and they did a good job of it, or we did a good job of it. 50,000 acres were purchased and protected in that first 35 years. 5 years after the founding of Midpen, Nonette helped create a land trust to assist Midpen's effort to protect open space. Starting in 1977, Peninsula Open Space Trust, or POST, became a strategic partner of Midpen, raising hundreds of millions of dollars and protecting over 75,000 acres of land. Nonette knew that proper policies and structures would be needed for this new agency, yet she believed the real secret to the success of an open space agency would be to hire smart, motivated, and passionate staff, some of whom are here today. Next to our precious protected land, Nonette always said that Midpen staff was our greatest asset. She was so proud of each one of them. One of Nonette's guiding principles has been always do the right thing for the land in the long run. This set a tone for the board. She always kept us focused on the greater good of the entire district rather than on our individual wards or short-term interests. She instilled a culture where we worked hard to reach consensus. At the same time, she brought thoughtful, creative, out-of-the-box thinking to many of our board discussions. Nonette loved to hear from the public. It was not often that we had a public attend our twice monthly meetings, but when they did, Nonette always tried to make them feel welcomed and valued. There were a few instances when we would have had a contentious meeting involving not so happy members of the public. Nonette would then bring her homemade brownies to the public meeting and remind speakers to help themselves after their comments. How was that for placating a hostile crowd? I could go on and on about Nonette, but I think it's time to present the Bay Nature Conservation Action Hero Award to her. Thank you for listening while I bragged about my hero. I think you'll agree her story is pretty remarkable. Thank you, Regina and the team at Bay Nature for making this award and recognition possible. And thank all of you for listening. Please share Nonette's incredible story with others and encourage all the future Nonette Hankos to believe that they too should make the world a better place for people and nature. Now, on behalf of Bay Nature, I'd like to present the 2022 Conservation Action Hero Award to Nonette Hanko.
Oh, thank you. And thank you all for coming. I have a hunch that I'm talking to people who are in the midst of preserving more open space somewhere in our area. Thank you. It's worth it.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Eric Simmons, and I'm the digital editor at Bay Nature. Thanks, Kurt, and thank you, Nonette. I want to start out before introducing Richard Tejeda, just acknowledging that this is a stressful time for a lot of people, and I actually want to connect that to this award. I was reading the American Psychological Association has done surveys of the American public every year since 2007. The survey for last year came out a couple weeks ago, and they reported finding, a quote, widespread grief and sense of loss, continued hardships for vulnerable populations, concerns for children's development among parents, and entrenched unhealthy coping habits. And I bring this up because I think many of us in this room have a preferred remedy for this sort of societal stress, and that's time spent outside. The emerging science that supports this choice is fascinating. Scientists have found that even regular windows looking out at nature are associated with higher degrees of well-being and life satisfaction. Children who see nature every day perform better on tests of memory, attention, and impulse control. Neuroscientists have shown that looking at photos and videos of natural scenery has a calming influence on our nervous system. They've shown that walking through forests reduces the level of the stress hormone cortisol. In one of my favorite experiments from just a few years ago at Stanford, people who took a walk around the trail called the Dish showed improved memory performance afterward compared to people who had walked down El Camino Real. Some of you may know that trail. So we reported on this at Bay Nature, and as we reported, there are these big universal connections between human brains and the outdoors. Nature is healing. But we are left with these big questions. Who gets these benefits? Who has access to them? And Richard Tejeda knows these benefits of nature well. He calls his organization Saved by Nature because, as he's going to tell us, that is the truth of his life. The natural world rescued him. But we recognize him this afternoon because he has taken that salvation and he has extended it to others. Now, Richard works tirelessly to make the benefits of nature accessible to people who historically have lacked that access. Saved by Nature offers community hikes, senior hikes, youth education, and programs for adults re-entering society from the carceral system. So at a time of widespread stress, anxiety, and challenge, I think it's apparent to all of us that nature itself is one of our solutions. And I want to ask to please join me in honoring Richard Tejeda of Saved by Nature as Bay Nature's 2022 Community Hero for his work to make that solution accessible to everyone.
I promised I wouldn't cry. Nonette, I just wanted to thank you and say that on April 5th and April 12th and April 26th, we'll be taking Boys and Girls Clubs to El Corte Madera, Skyline, and Bear Creek. Thank you so much for making that possible for us. We draw our strength from the very despair in which we have been forced to live. We shall endure. Cesar Chavez. It was my life's journey that led to the creation of Saved by Nature. My mother was 16 when she had my brother in Gilroy, California. I was born 3 years later in a Hispanic community of Corpus Christi, Texas, hometown to the Tejano music queen, Selena. My mother met my father, who was from Texas, while working seasonally in the fields of Gilroy. Soon after I was born, my mother fled Texas with my brother and I from an abusive relationship. We were raised in an ethnically diverse, low-income community of South San Jose. My mother didn't have a chance to graduate from high school, so we had very little money. We were on welfare. I remember taking the bus a lot and eating government cheese, if you will. I do have countless good memories as a youth, like the Boys and Girls Club, but overall, growing up wasn't easy. I was surrounded by a culture of gangs and drugs, which included my own family. I soon became a victim of historical injustices that would end up losing many years of my freedom to a revolving door system. Nature saved my life. I was supposed to be a statistic, but I couldn't let that happen. I had to reinvent myself, and nature was a positive escape from the everyday negativity of my neighborhood. When out in nature, I felt that I was in a whole new world, a place where I could escape the gangs and drugs. What really hit me was the sort of trance I would enter, especially when fishing along rivers and creeks. It must be the sound of the river and the water that drowns out the negative thoughts, because I wasn't thinking of my painful past. I was present in the now. And for me, that's something that's rare because my mind is always running. I wanted to share this life-changing experience with others, but I didn't know how. I was still finding my own way. It wasn't until I enrolled in the West Valley College Park Management Program that I began thinking of creating an organization that would help people like myself by introducing them to nature. I would daydream in class of little homeboys frolicking through the redwood forest. Eventually, though, I decided I want to be a full-time park interpreter to support my family, and because it felt safer than starting my own nonprofit. While enrolled at West Valley, I landed my first job at Big Basin Redwood State Park. As a park aide, I worked at the ranger station checking in campers and selling wood. It was a wonderful experience. I would then take on positions with Guadalupe River Park Conservancy as an environmental educator, Santa Clara County Parks as seasonal park maintenance worker, and Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority as a seasonal interpreter. To be more competitive, though, I enrolled in the environmental studies program at San Jose State University and took an internship with Valley Water in the educational department. When the pandemic began, I was working with California State Parks as a seasonal park interpreter and came to a crossroad. Would I continue to chase the dream of becoming a full-time park interpreter, or take the leap of faith and start a nonprofit organization? The inspiration behind my decision would come from knowing that only 1 to 1.2% of African Americans and 3.8 to 6.7% of Latinx populations visit our public lands. And so, Saved by Nature is a direct response and solution to address a need for more people of color to visit and work in our parks, preserves, and forests, a need for multilingual materials and culturally relevant programming, as well as a need to increase allyship by people who do not identify as Black, Indigenous people of color. And as Cesar Chavez said, to make a great dream come true, the first requirement is a great capacity to dream. The second is persistence. And let me tell you from experience that dreaming is the easy part. Persistence, dedication, and discipline is the hard part. From a seed, with the support of the community, we are growing an organization together. Our mission is to expose and connect people of all backgrounds and ethnicities and abilities to the natural wonders and recreational opportunities of the outdoors, an organization that collaborates with partners to ensure mental, physical, and spiritual healing in nature. And since April of 2019, We have taken 1,847 community members on guided educational hikes, provided virtual nature experiences for 3,563 people living with disability and residents isolated by the pandemic, led 326 seniors on hikes for health, and served 754 at-promise youth through our Summer Science Project in partnership with the Boys and Girls Club and our Live Outside Adventure Series in partnership with Youth Alliance. Free programs and transportation, food, equipment, and guidance are provided with orientation and preparation hikes. Our goals are to increase youth confidence and sense of belonging before experience a 2-day, 1-night backpacking trip at a state park or preserve. Through our innovative and culturally relevant programs, many participants have seen the ocean, explored natural areas, camped, and considered a job in the outdoors field for the very first time. Removing barriers, creating changes, and connecting communities is not easy work. It's going to take all of you. Doctors, elected officials, educators, construction and food workers to create change. I invite you to take the first step with Save by Nature April 10th at Alum Rock Park for our volunteer intake. Be a part of providing life-changing nature experience in a movement that removes barriers to accessing nature in public lands. I'd like to thank my wife, Tanya Rodriguez Tejeda, Sean Reddy, and our members, donors, and volunteers who I could not do this without. Jose Gonzalez from Latino Outdoors, Lillian Silva from Youth Alliance, Fred McCauskin from Boys and Girls Club, Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority, Peninsula Open Space Trust, Mid-Peninsula Region Open Space District, REI, National Recreation Fund, Save the Redwood Leagues, and of course, Bay Nature. Have a good one, y'all.
Hi, welcome everybody. Oops, that's a good start. Hang on. Thank you, Richard. And thank you, Nonette. I grew up down in Menlo Park. I spent a lot of my youth exploring lands that you helped save, so thank you. So my name is Victoria Schlesinger. I'm the editor of Bay Nature magazine and website, and this is going to be hopefully an entertaining part of our program today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Bay Nature magazine and website and demonstrate why you all are so essential to it. And the way it's going to work, this part of our program, is this okay? Am I blasting you guys out? Okay. Is when you came in and registered, you got a program that has a number on the back of it. So everybody pull out their program. You got the number on the back. So pretty much, I'm going to spend time walking us through the different financial levels of support that you can offer to Bay Nature if you feel so moved and are able, between $1,000 and $50. And we are going to start that off today. Oh, so what I want you to do is hold up your number towards the stage, and I'm going to call out your number, or if I can't see for some reason, which is certainly possible, I'll ask you to call out the number yourself, and we'll get someone to write it down. Thanks. So to start us off today, we have a very generous donation from Jorgen Hildebrandt. Jorgen, raise your hand. A long time, very generous donor to Bay Nature, who has started us off today with a $5,000 gift. And my goal, for all of us is to collectively meet or potentially even surpass that goal of $5,000. So let's see how it goes. Okay, so I know that I recognize a lot of faces here, and there are a lot of faces I don't recognize, which is pretty exciting. And I want to welcome you to Bay Nature. Thank you for taking time to come check us out and what we're doing. And I'm personally interested and excited to get to know you. So in the reception, please come up and say hello. Bay Nature is, in addition to, as Regina said, in addition to celebrating really cool people, we, a majority of what we do as a media company, oh no. There we go. We publish Bay Nature magazine. 4 times a year, and we publish Bay Nature's website where we put on original content every week. Everything, well, actually, before I get to that, everything in Bay Nature is written, reported, edited, fact-checked, and copy-edited by environmental and science journalists or by scientists, community leaders, thinkers with the assistance of Bay Nature editors. So I would like the Bay Nature editorial team that is here today to please stand up. All of you contractors, staff, stand up. I know you're out there. Great. So we have, wait, don't sit yet. There's Eric, who you just met, introduced Richard, who is a reporter, writer, editor extraordinaire. Next to him is Kristen Hugo, who reports, writes, fact checks, does all our social media. Standing in the back is Leah Keener, our newest addition. And Mukta, you're here, great. Mukta Patel is here, who's doing reporting and writing for us. Leah Keener is doing fact checking for us. So every one of the heroes here knows Leah's name because she called you or emailed you with about 30, 50 questions, trying to make sure we got every fact right? Because we really take accuracy seriously at Bay Nature. We see accuracy as a currency of respect, and we respect everybody who gives their time to this publication. So what do we do at Bay Nature? Or actually, before I do that. So one thing I wanted to point out that I think a lot of people don't know about Bay Nature is that everything that goes in this magazine then gets put on the website. Everything on the Bay Nature website is free. There's no paywall. There's no limit to the number of articles you can read. Everything is free. And the reason for that is because we have a vision that everybody have a close relationship with nature. And one really clear way to facilitate that, hardly the only way, but a clear way, is to provide everybody, regardless of your salary, with accurate, independently reported information. So we stand really strongly by that. And now we're going to get to the point of the day here. Who here can help support Bay Nature at the amount of $1,000 to continue enabling us to make information free for anybody who wants to read about it? Hold up your paddles. Oh my goodness, number 72. Number 129. Number 125. I'm gonna start crying. Number 41. Number 61. Okay. Can you tell that I don't usually do fundraising? Okay, so what do we do at Bay Nature? What do we write about? We certainly write about amazing people, and we do profiles of them, but we, as many of you know, we spend a lot of time writing about non-human animals, plants, ecosystems, and places in the Bay Area. And we do that with just a really deep sense of curiosity and interest. And we're motivated to do that because we hear and we have heard in Bay Nature's 22 years of history, the desire by readers to feel connected to the animals, plants, and places around them. This is their home, these are their neighbors, and they want to know them. They want to know how they live their lives. They want to know what causes them to suffer and what causes them to thrive. So we do a lot of writing and try to tell the stories of these species. And I looked on Bay Nature just in the last couple weeks on what's been on the website. We have written about Bay Area sea otters, gray foxes, peregrine falcons, long-billed curlews, Chinook salmon, abalone, leatherwood, endemic manzanitas, coast live oaks, various species of fungi, monarchs, beavers, California newts, tarantulas, tide pools, sand dollars, the Madden-Julian oscillation, way to go, Mukta. Check that out, folks. The Bay Water Trail, which circumnavigates the entire bay. Mount Diablo to the east, Helen Putnam Park in Sonoma, the saving of Tesla Park near Livermore, and the new campground by Cody Hills Regional Park. And that list just goes on and on and on. That's just recently. All those species, all those places. So help Bay Nature continue to tell the stories of species and places. If you can, raise your program for $500. Woo! 16, 8, 45, 59, 74. Thank you. Huge applause, everybody. Woo! Oh, 48. Whoa, sorry. Don't let me overlook you. Okay, so we do a lot of stories about plants, animals, places. And Bay Nature does a lot of work, puts a lot of effort and time into covering the big challenges that our society faces. Let's see, just in the last 12 months, we devoted an entire issue of Bay Nature to wildfire in Northern California, 48 pages about that. In those 48 pages, we heard from members of the indigenous communities in the area. We heard from scientists. We heard from politicians who laid out the challenges and the choices in front of all of us that are defining our lives. And then a couple weeks ago, I heard, sometimes we don't get a lot of feedback at Bay Nature. We don't know how what we do hits people. And I was out and I heard an East Bay Regional Park District naturalist. She told me that was actually her favorite issue of Bay Nature because she's talking with the public all day long and gets all these questions. What happens to wildlife? What happens to oak trees? What happens to redwoods? What's gonna happen to us? What about smoke? And she said, I point them to that issue of the magazine, which is online for free for anybody to read. So I feel a deep sense of pride that Bay Nature is helping other people do their really important and challenging work. Yeah. We also, in the fall issue, did a story that I feel very passionate about. We did a story about how people in California are increasingly living on public lands because they can't afford housing elsewhere. This is a story that is gonna sadly, really heartbreakingly be in the news more and more and more would be my prediction. And it's a story that really pushes us to realize that what we do here in the Bay Area, the choices we make about housing here in the Bay Area can affect the lands that we love elsewhere because people are living on federal lands throughout the state. They're not just living in city parks, in city creeks. They're living on BLM land. They're living on National Forest Service land because they don't have other options. That is a story that KQED Forum, many of you know, also thought was a good story. They called our reporter, had her on, had multiple sources join her, and they had an hour-long conversation about this. So it's not only when you're supporting Bay Nature, you're not only supporting this organization, but you're supporting the conversation, what conversations we're having. Because you know who reads Bay Nature? Other media. They get a lot of ideas from us, which is great, you know, flattery, all that. So help us at Bay Nature continue to do this really important kind of work, this difficult, time-consuming, expensive reporting. If you can, please support us at the level of $250 to continue to do this kind of work. Hold up your program if you can. 86, 91, 53, 29. 33, 84, 68, 50, 122, 90, 121. All right. You might get me to do this again, Regina. Okay, another subject that is deeply important to Bay Nature is the ongoing movement towards a truly diverse, truly equitable, truly just society. That is a long-term big goal, and we are deeply committed to it. And as a small media organization, we're committed to it in a lot of different ways, but I'm only going to talk about 2 of them today. If you'd like to hear about other ways that we're pursuing that, let me know. I'm happy to talk about it anytime. But this is a publication that since its inception, more than 2 decades ago, has been dedicated to publishing stories by and about the indigenous communities in California. We've been at it for 20 years, and we have put in the time, and we keep putting in the time. So I want to note here some of the pieces that we have published and why some members of the indigenous community are talking to us. We have published essays by Tribal Chairman Greg Saris of the Federated Indians of Graton Rancheria. We've published by Vincent Medina of the Muwekma Ohlone and Luis Trevino of the Rumsen Ohlone. Tribal Chairman Valentin Lopez of the Amamutsin has been profiled and quoted in Bay Nature many times. We've profiled Linda Yamane of the Rumsen Ohlone. We've quoted Tribal Chairwoman Karina Gould of the Confederated Villages of Lisjan Ohlone. Jacqueline Ann Ross of the Coast Miwok and Southern Pomo has written for Bay Nature and has a cover story on abalone in this issue. Don Hankins, Plains Miwok geography professor, has written 2 essays for Bay Nature he did in the last year in 2021 about cultural burning. The point was to really help people understand what cultural burning is versus prescribed burning versus wildfire. And I spoke to Dr. Hansen, Professor Hansen, this fall just to say hello, how are things? And he said, you know, I really want you to know that those 2 essays have significantly impacted my work. Because after they were published, I had academics, politicians, lawyers, firefighters, media reaching out to me because they'd read these essays and they got it. They finally got what cultural burns are, and they wanted to talk about it. He also said that those essays helped open the door to him working with legislative aides on legislation in California that has fostered cultural burns and facilitated them being less regulated, easier to do in the state of California. And that's legislation that Newsom signed in the fall. So help this publication keep doing this kind of work. If you can, please support Bay Nature at a level of $100. We would be so grateful. 89, 102, 123, 85, 118, 98, 124, 108, 14, 96, 22, 1, 23, 12, 50, 36, 65, 17, 28, 34, 114. Wow. Wow. All right. And the second thing I'm going to share with you is some really exciting news that, gosh, for the last 6 years at least, we have been talking at Bay Nature about creating an environmental and science journalism fellowship, a fellowship that Kathryn, you know that, a fellowship that would enable a young person who wants to pursue environmental and science journalism to have a full-time job in the Bay Area in media. That's not a small thing. Have an opportunity to write about issues that they value that are important to them, and for people at Bay Nature to be able to share all that we have learned and know over all these years about the natural world in the Bay Area. So we've been pitching people on this for a long time. And just recently, Taylor, our development manager, appears to have nailed it. So I'm not allowed to say the fancy foundation yet, because it's not, not all the I's are dotted and T's crossed. But it looks like they are going to fund us between $50,000 and $75,000, so we can do this for real. We can pay somebody a living wage. This is not internship kind of money. This is real money. And for me, that's kind of like the cherry on the cake. I can't believe we did it. And what I want to say is that exemplifies the kind of organization I'm asking you to support. It is an organization we lead, we are tenacious, like you said, Richard, we fight, we are compassionate. And when we say that everybody should have a relationship with nature, we mean it, everybody. So if you can support us with $50, please hold up your paddle or your program. Thank you. 99, 31, 37, 128, free, 82, 78, 103, 43, 70, 30. Wow! Thank you. Thank you so much. How are we doing? You all just supported Bay Nature to the tune of $12,500. Way to go. That applause is for you. Thank you. Thank you. And now I get to hand off the mic.
Wow, my heart was already pumping, and now it's really thumping. So can we just give another applause to Victoria, to all of our supporters, and truly to everyone who is here with us today. Thank you so much. Thank you all. Wow. I'm so excited I forgot to take off my mask. Hi, everyone. My name is Taylor Crisologo, and I am Development Manager at Bay Nature. And now, I'd like to focus the program here on Solwazi. It is my pleasure to introduce our next local hero, Solwazi Allah, our Young Leader Award recipient. From a very young age, Solwazi has been a nature kid. He grew up locally in Oakland and went on hikes with his family before he could walk. He learned how to fish at the age of 3, and as a young adult, he attended the Green Academy at Berkeley High and later attended UC Santa Cruz to pursue study in environmental science. In his experiences in nature, Solwazi found something special. In his words, "As I grew up and found my own voice and power, I realized my desire and the need to protect nature." And Solwazi found a way to do just that. He put his passion into action through his work at Urban Tilth, a Richmond-based nonprofit focused on urban agriculture, equitable food systems, and watershed restoration. At Urban Tilth, Solwazi became the watershed restoration field crew manager. His team helps care for Wildcat Creek, whose headwaters begin at nearby Tilden Regional Park, and eventually thread through Richmond. Solwazi also helps young people connect with their local waterways, most recently through his watershed stewardship-focused curriculum for Urban Tilth's Summer Youth Apprenticeship Program. Solwazi's story is a powerful example of how a love for nature can lead to action to protect and preserve our local environment and wildlife. And with that, we are very pleased to present Solwazi with Bay Nature's 2022 Young Leader Award and $500 to support his professional development. Congratulations, Solwazi.
Hi, everybody. A little nervous to be up here, but first off, just wanted to say thank you to Taylor and Bay Nature for presenting me with this amazing award. It's such an honor. It's amazing to see all these people gathered for the sake of environmental protection and stewardship. I'm proud to be able to stand here in acknowledgement of the necessary preservation of our beautiful local ecosystems. I'm proud to be able to represent people of color as a young Black man in the field of conservation. I'm grateful. I'm grateful to be able to do work that helps heal nature as well as the community that I live in. When I was introduced to Urban Tilth by my mom, I was choosing between two jobs. One felt like the smarter choice financially, but Urban Tilth felt like the job that would bring me the most fulfillment and allow me to really connect with my work, and so it has. It has enabled me to expand my knowledge of native ecology and the ancient history of the land, to learn new plants and animals that I've always been around but never could identify, to learn about the indigenous people who first stewarded this land and who continue to do so to this day, carrying on the wisdom of their ancestors. My growth in Urban Tilth has also pushed me to a role of leadership, something I've often shied away from. Last year, I was able to help lead a group of 7 amazing local youth through our summer apprenticeship program, and that has been one of the highlights of my young career. I'm excited to see what new opportunities arise and how much more I can break out of my comfort zone. Please check out Urban Tilth's website, our Instagram page, Facebook page, to learn about all the other amazing programs that we have, in addition to the watersheds, including the Farm to Table CSA program, the Richmond High Urban Agriculture class, and many others. We'll be putting on an Earth Day event at Unity Park on April 23rd, and all of you are welcome to come. I would love to see your faces. Thank you again for the acknowledgement, and thank you to the other awardees for sharing your amazing stories.
Good afternoon, everyone. Congratulations, Nonette and Richard and Solwazi. My name is Nan Ho. I'm on the board of Bay Nature, and it is my deep honor to introduce Megan Isadore, our local hero for environmental educator. Megan's influence as an environmental educator and expert is breathtaking in its breadth and its depth. Let me share a few examples. First, geographical reach. Megan is the executive director of the River Otter Ecology Project, which she co-founded in 2012. This project spans the entire Bay Area and has generated data throughout California that has actually changed the range map of the river otter. But Megan's expertise about river otters extends farther to all of North America. She is the deputy continental coordinator and river otter specialist for the IUCN, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, which publishes the Red List of Threatened Species, one of the most authoritative resources about the status of our planet's biodiversity. Second, Megan affects lives as an exemplary educator. She has inspired and continues to inspire thousands of people, kids from elementary school, junior high, high school, college, university, through field trips, lectures, and presentations to the public, TV interviews, even one of our very own Bay Nature talks. She teaches people, those she has trained in wildlife rehabilitation, fellow naturalists, interns who adore her via manuals, peer-reviewed articles, and blogs, just to name a few. It is not surprising that Megan is recognized for her gift as a teacher by other professionals, such as conservation professionals and teachers who have directly watched her working her magic with all those she encounters, even on a casual hike where she encounters someone curious about what they're seeing. They all speak of her passion, warmth, and generosity, and joyful enthusiasm in sharing her knowledge and love of the natural world, including our own beloved river otter. Through her career, Megan has had a positive impact on our environment. Megan has been a naturalist, a wildlife rehabilitator, a field researcher. She has also been engaged in salmon restoration and has led hundreds of creek hikes to teach others about salmon spawning. And the Sea Otter Ecology Project created the Otter Spotter, isn't that a great name? A citizen science project which has engaged the public to see and thus appreciate river otters and their watersheds. Just like Solwazi, there's a watershed theme today. She has created meaning for thousands. A favorite saying among teachers is every moment is a teachable moment. That is Megan. A key tenet of ecology is everything is connected. That is Megan. As an educator myself, I marvel at Megan's exquisite ability to blend education, research, conservation, and engage community science with her zest for learning and teaching. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to our local hero and environmental educator, Megan Isadore.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you. Thank you all so much for being here, and thank you for that beautiful introduction. Thank you for supporting Bay Nature, and I'm crying now too. And you know, it's really great to see the community out here again. This is the first time I've been able to speak, not on Zoom, for 2.5 years, and it makes me really happy. And I want to talk today about connections. I was drawn to ecology because I love connections. I love figuring out how the web of life is connected. Let me make my slides go. There we go. And how our minds work and how discrete bundles of information become knowledge and understanding that we can use as a web to help us move outward and learn more and understand more and make creative change. So today I want to talk about some of the people who are the actual connectors who make this happen. And one of my favorites is Dr. Jessica Bean of UC Berkeley. She came up with this amazingly dense, as you see here, and elegant and fascinating method of showing life processes and nature processes and how they connect. And this is really a teaching aid for adults, for children, for all of us, and helps us understand global climate change and gives us that jumping out place so that we can affect it one of these days. My next connector is Camille Dungy. She is an amazing essayist and poet of nature and race who takes us into her experience and her background and with precise and strong language and helps us see how to imagine the future that we want and how to move toward that. Carlos Parada, who's here today. Raise your hand, Carlos. Carlos invites us into his close relationship with nature and with community. And he does it through his photos. He tells us he's going to work, he's going to church, and he goes out into nature and he connects us. He shows us what it's like out there, why we should care. He also cares about his community, and you'll see his photographs of people, the other wildlife that we work with out in West Marin. And one of my favorite photos of Carlos is a badger. It's a privilege to work with people who dig in and translate your thoughts into actions that connect and that expand understanding. Richard does it by taking people out on walks and talking to them. Solwazi harnesses young stewards of the watershed to restore. Nonette has spent her lifetime protecting large, vast tracts of landscape for all of us and for the natural and human communities that use them. And all of you make it sound easy. It's not easy and it's not simple. And by nature, you're one of the great connectors as well, reaching so many people through all of your work. Now, this all sounds kind of simple, but it's not simple. It's really complicated. It's hard work. But the idea behind it is simple: connect to protect. I got involved with nature, not because I was that kid who was out there knowing all the animals and plants and kayaking and camping. Nope, that wasn't me. I was that kid with her nose in a book all the time. But my family lived overseas in Asia for most of my youth. And so I really got to see a lot. I saw desert roses growing in the desert in Saudi Arabia. I saw camel caravans clopping down the street outside my house at dawn in Kabul. I saw giant lizards again in Saudi Arabia. One of these huge lizards, the Uromastyx, got caught in one of our fences, and it had to stay there for a couple of days because it was too fat. It had just eaten a huge meal, and it had to thin down before it could escape. But I was a little kid, and this thing looked like a dragon to me. It was so exciting. So there are all kinds of stories like that. We lived in Jordan when I was a little kid. I played with my neighbors. They didn't speak English. I didn't speak Arabic. But we played kick the can until it got dark, and we ate a lot of chocolate together. So those things really affected me. The point is, there are so many stories like that, but my mind opened, and I started to make connections. So we're fast forwarding now by many years, or else we'll be here till midnight. And I moved to Marin after a career as a medical risk manager for about 10 years. I moved to Marin, and I stood on the banks of Lagunitas Creek one afternoon in the winter, and I saw these gorgeous salmon coming upstream to spawn, and I was ensorcelled. I was bewitched. I could not leave them alone. So I quit my corporate job, and I spent the next 12 years, actually the next 20 years, learning watershed ecology, working with researchers, working with restorationists, doing everything I could to learn, and also doing wildlife rehab, which was really, really fun and very, very difficult. And here is a tiny salmon. This is what kills me. You look in the creek and you see this little salmon fry that's about this big, and you realize it's just a bundle of possibilities. It's one of the few that is going to survive, maybe to come back to spawn. So how can you resist? You really can't. So all of this didn't come very easily to me. Actually, I was really terrified of public speaking, and I would stand on the bank of Lagunitas Creek, literally shaking, while people gathered around to hear about the heroic journey of the salmon. But as you can tell, I got over that. And, and I had a lot of fun with baby raccoons as well at the same time. So now my life is all about finding connections among people and among organizations to support the need to conserve our land and waters. And that is where the otters come in. This is a video by my friend Karen James, who's here today. And the first time I saw otters was at Devil's Gulch in Lagunitas Creek. It was nighttime. They were slipping through the water. The moon was glowing off of them. They were peeping like otters do. They sound like little birds chirping away. And I looked down and all 6 of them stopped to look up and looked up at me. They were so curious. And that's when I became ensorcelled, bewitched once again. So we started looking into what was known about river otters in the Bay Area, and it turned out that they were here, but they had disappeared in the early 1900s to the 1950s, so they weren't even considered to be an animal that lived in the Bay Area. So we realized there's a big data gap here. And my husband and partner, Terence, raise your hand, Terence, and I, yay, Terence. Terence and I founded River Otter Ecology to fill that data gap. So at the same time, we realized that the return of river otters was just a fantastic story and one we had to get out there. So we spent the last 10 years finding out the very local information about this species. That's not only incredibly charismatic, but a huge recovery success story. The fact that river otters thrive in our densely populated Bay Area in all the big cities around us is hopeful. And our next goal for River Otter Ecology Project is to really take that hopeful story of the river otters thriving in cities and connect it to conservation in cities, to urban conservation. River otters are a connector. They connect the urban and the wildlands, and there's no reason why we can't all continue to work with that. It's pretty good. We use community science and research to find out what's going on with the river otters in our area, to inform land and watershed decisions, to advocate for watershed protections, and to help us get students outside to learn what science is, why it matters, and how much fun it really is to get out there, to discover new things, and to use that information to support and steward our lands and waters. And that brings us back to community. We are a tiny organization. Terence and I are the only staff. So we completely depend upon all of our incredible support network. We have volunteers, we have advisors, we have supporters. You may recognize some of them. Monroe is one of them. I think she couldn't be here today, but she wanted to. And then the ones on top are mostly here today. Jeff and Wendy Photography, Karen James, Peter Bartow, Carlos, Holly Groves are all here. And these are the connections that make us all stronger. There's nothing like being firmly rooted. We are unendingly grateful to be connected to all of you. We're most grateful of all to the Coast and Bay Miwok, to the Pomo, to the Ohlone tribes, and the Wapo for stewarding the land that we live in and work on, for their soul deep understanding and for keeping those connections together despite appalling odds. And I would say now that we're all facing a very difficult future, as we know, and we need to double down on community. I'm asking all of us and myself to examine our connections, to strengthen them and to broaden them, and let them become a scaffold for effective and creative action. Otters, oops.
one of Jeff and Wendy's photos, gorgeous. Otter's recovery is a really hopeful story, and it gives us a way to continue to connect, to send ripples into the future that are positive. So I thank you all again. Thank you, Bay Nature. Thank you all for all of the work you do, which is just amazing. And thank you everyone for being here. And thank you so much, my fellow heroes. You make me so happy. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rebecca Johnson, and I'm an honored to be a board member of Bay Nature. I just want to take a minute to absorb all the beautiful words we just heard. I don't know about you, but this is one of the first times I've been together with people working in the same field as I do. And I think I really underestimated how powerful it was going to be together, to not only hear from the heroes, but also to see the Bay Nature community come together in support of heroes and Bay Nature and the work we're all doing together. So I just want to take a minute to thank all of you for all of your generosity, for showing up here, for reading the magazine, for nominating heroes, for doing heroic work. To all of you individually, to all of the folks that sponsored this event. And it's just so meaningful, especially now when we're facing so much uncertainty in so many different areas of the world, right? To be together to celebrate nature, to celebrate our individual heroes, but really to celebrate that connection, like Megan just emphasized, that all of these heroes have done amazing things individually, but they also brought people together to do that work collectively. And that's what it's going to take to solve all of these problems. And they all just exemplify that work so beautifully. Just like I think Bay Area exemplifies that by bringing the stories together, by bringing people, animals, places, plants to a magazine that we can read 4 times a year, but also online that we can share with community. And that's just going to be more important as we go forward and continue to try to save, Bay Area nature, the people of the Bay Area, and save the world. And that's really what we're doing here today. So I just want to thank you. I'm the only thing standing between you and the reception. So, just take our thanks as the board, my thanks, all of our thanks. And the reception will be upstairs. There's an elevator and there are also stairs. Make sure if you haven't put your ticket in one of the jars to do that when you get upstairs. And, challenge yourself when you're up there that we're all together again. Try to talk to someone you haven't met before and meet someone you haven't met so that next time we'll know more people. And so thank you so much. See you upstairs.